do I want to give up the day job and be a full-time artist? In some ways, if I had to be perfectly honest, I'm terrified of becoming a full-time artist, because in some way we live in a dream that we can be creative and do all these sort of things, but we always forget about admin. We always forget about marketing. We always forget about all those elements.
Yeah. I mean, what is bothering me is that the change or the transformation I'm going through, and apart from the work thing, it's just in general being a displaced person. Just feels a bit too much, to be honest. And yeah, because of the war in my country and this displacement and so many changes, and sometimes you don't want to change really, and you don't want any changes around you. You just want to be, I don't know, you just want to be okay and comfortable the way you used to be. Hmm.
When there is balance, it all works perfectly well because one feeds into the other and it becomes quite seamless. But then when it becomes unbalanced, that's when it all starts to go. That's when it all starts to go wrong, because obviously in my job, my day job, that's really emotional and needs a lot of me, and it's not a 9 to 5 job. So then when you're trying to then create artwork on top of that, the artwork then gets pushed to the side, although it's the artwork that actually keeps you balanced. And then what happens is you're not feeding, or I'm not feeding my soul with the thing that gives me joy, which is my artwork, and then everything starts to fail, and then I don't feel like I'm actually putting the right amount of anything into anything. I'm just doing half a job on everything, basically.
14-year-old boys that I was supposed to cover. And I was like, is there going to be another teacher there? They were like, yeah, no. Because they were all excited. Class, 14-year-old boys.
Considering it as work, what I'm trying to figure out now is how to prioritise things, because I've realised my plate is really full. I have a habit of taking on too much. And then my energy is really, really scattered, and I can't focus on one thing because my brain is just literally going all over the place.
Yeah, in situation like this, you start asking yourself questions, and answers are not always really positive. They're very sad sometimes and very surprisingly unexpected. You start digging and asking who you really are, or maybe who are you now? What kind of person are you now? Because in a way, the person you used to be is gone now. So yeah, are you going to do the same things you used to do? Do you really have the same desires or dreams, or even the same amount of energy and happiness? And so the answer is, I don't know.
Again, for me, art is not necessarily about recognition or that's about that sort of nebulous idea of fame. Art is about connecting. But if you're not able to put bread on the table or something like that, then your mind is consumed. Your mind can be consumed with survival, and then you're not able to do art. And then in the process of being and doing art and putting myself out there, almost without context, that almost in some way I'm probably more able to become an artist because I don't still fully know the cost.
And it was just awful. So then, I take all these boys in tow to this room. It was locked and it was being used for something else, taking them all around the school. By that time, one boy had pulled another boy's trousers down in front of a classroom to embarrass them. So that was the first incident. And then in the end, we went out and played football, but they were so overexcited, they were like swearing at each other and stuff. And one of them said something to another kid. And it was the end of the day, had a really long day. All this other stuff happened. And I did sort of call them out, you know, calling them out on their swearing, but it's a massive field. These 14-year-old boys, you know, once you let them loose, they like run away like rabid dogs. And, you know, I was trying to calm it down. My voice, I'm not a PE teacher, I didn't have a whistle. And they were swearing at each other, and one boy said,
a perfect day would be a day where everything's really organised and I can get up and do some artwork and then some work and then have time to do, I don't know, go and sit out in the sun. It's about having that, making sure you've got time to do everything, or going and seeing the grandchildren and spending time with them and spending time with family. I mean, they're the important things.
Stuff, but I think I've recognised that about myself, that I overanalyze and go to extremes within a couple of seconds, and then I have to pull myself back. And I think that's the beauty of my artwork. It just stops me thinking, and I just create. That's where I want to be, where I just feel free to express who I am as I am, and I just move in a really nice flow, but life gets in the way and interrupts.
It's the symbiotic relationship between what I do during the day, what distracts me from making my work. It informs my work, but it also takes me away from my work.
Yeah, I think it's you know, maybe the last place in the world where you really can be true to yourself, at least trying to find these important answers. The thing is, no one will tell you any answers, and maybe the art is the place where you can really try and find them.
I am generally a faffer. Before I go to work, I usually try and find time to do something that is for me, that is about what I feel and what I want to express on that day. You think about your day and you dread it. You're absolutely dreading what you have to send this email, you have to go and do this task or anything like that. But then sometimes you're looking forward to the things that are coming up.
and as I left the school, walked past the bus stop, some girl that doesn't even know me, wasn't even in my class, said, "You're not very helpful, are you, miss? You didn't do the right thing." I just thought, oh my God, I didn't actually, but it's so hard in the moment.
And the question is, if I had a life that was completely free of distractions, would I have as much urgency in making my work? How much do I rely upon one to inform the other?
It depends it depends where my head is, I suppose, because what happens is I get to a point where I need to be able to do it. It becomes a force that I need to have to make myself balanced. There's that word again, isn't it? It's balance. I just need to have that back in my life to satisfy my soul and for me to be okay. It settles me, and it's like you could even say it's quite a meditative state to be in. So when I'm creating artwork, it's not like an outpouring of me into it. It's like the artwork pours into me. Does that make sense?
But being an illustrator, who I used to be, doesn't fulfill me anymore, and it confuses me even more, maybe because I'm spending my creative energy to solve somebody else's needs or problems. And maybe at this point of my life, I really need to solve my own problems. So
my work as a marketer can be very unpredictable. Some days I'm going to be doing administration, billings, accounts, all that sort of stuff. But then I'd be trying to plan out a social plan, or I'd be trying to create a YouTube strategy. My job is not necessarily about the objects themselves, but rather the meaning behind the objects and bringing meaning to the customer. And so, but then maybe that's in some way the reason why I come to in my art is similar to our marketing, is that it's almost about a quest for meaning. It's a quest to try and find what is actually intrinsically true, intrinsically vital in the piece. Essentially, I view almost marketing and my day job as kind of like a function, and almost in some way outside of it is kind of like almost like following a similar vein, but almost trying to find a new vitality in something else. Because I've had disagreements with people before in my art philosophy, but my art philosophy is that in everything that you do, there is a nugget of art, and even in the most boring of places, a certain angle, a certain twist, will bring out an entirely new universe.
If I have had a day at work that has been emotional or difficult, then I can come home and create. It's whether I allow myself to do that. Sometimes I don't.
Okay.
I think I need to sit and write down everything that I've got going on. And I feel like I need to maybe let go of a few things to make space for the things that I feel really passionate about. And I've recognised that creating is really important for me and it needs to be part of my job. I think it's a case of me deciding what's really important to me and lightening my load a lot. I think it's not healthy for me to be in this extreme nervous state a majority of my life, because I just get really exhausted. And if I'm constantly going in ebbs and flows of being very productive and then completely exhausted, that's not good for your health anyway. So I think I need to find a balance, and I'm not quite sure what that looks like. Not working for anybody else, which is really, really difficult, because obviously I have to pay bills. You know, I have to pay life, if you like. But all I want to do is do the things I like doing. So it feels like I'm being like a quite childlike, in that I'm throwing my dummy out of the pram, in that I don't want to go to work. I just want to paint and I want to create and what have you. But I think the more I think about it, is I just want to create and have it as a business, and I want to work for myself.
Years ago, when I had a design business, I'd get up in the morning, walk the dogs, go off to work. From 8:30 till probably 6:30, 7 o'clock, I focused solely on creative output. I get a good 8 hours a day of only making work. So what is it that's changed now that I have 2 hours a day to make work when I'm not actually employed anymore or running a business? I don't get it. What is the blockage? What is the other stuff that's got into my life that distracts me? Or maybe I can't make as much work. Maybe it's the facilities I have, the space I'm in, that I hide behind as an excuse for not making work.
I find that I do my best art when I find pockets or moments in time in which, almost in some way, I have a gap in time. I have a piece of paper, I have the materials, and then I just create in pure creation. I do art because I want to do it. I do art because I need to do it, because I want to communicate, I want to connect, and I want to be able to give people a vision of a world outside of the one they know.
I feel like this conversation between me and me that's happening all the time in my head, it's yeah, it's something really valuable, and it's something so invisible and fragile. And yeah, I really want it to appear, so it doesn't stay in my head forever. I really want to take it out. I miss the feeling to truly enjoy what I'm doing in the moment and not expect not expecting the result to be this way or that way. It's just being in the process and in the moment. And I think I've missed that really.
And I think it's also interesting that, in my life, I try to be or have things as perfect as possible. But when I'm creating, it doesn't matter, because when I'm playing with the silk, I literally throw it up in the air and I'm dancing around with it and it just drops where it is, and that's where it's meant to be. So it's quite interesting. On one aspect, I've got this control and perfectionism that I'm trying to let go of, but when it comes to my creativity, there isn't any of that. It's just literally flows, which I find is quite interesting. It's really difficult to try and find that balance. And I think where I am at the moment, I'm craving this mental and physical stability and exploring what that looks like and how I can achieve it whilst trying to balance things. It was sort of taught, if you like, that art was just a waste of time and it will never make you any money and there's just no point. You need to get a proper job. As an adult, yes, you do have to pay bills, but who says you can't be an artist? But unless you actually try, unless you actually invest time and energy in that, you're never really going to know. And I think that's what I've realised. Half of my life, I've just run around doing what other people have told me to do and believed them. Why would I want to go and do something that somebody's told me to do because everybody else is doing the same thing? I want to do what I want to do. And then who says I can't do that? I can choose what I want to do. And I think that's what I'm realising with my creative practice. Yes, it might take me a while to earn some money, if any money, but it needs to be a larger percentage of my life. It can't be squeezed into an hour or 45 minutes of a day.
So with my art, it's almost in some way, I would say, is the avant-garde frontier of this philosophy. I feel almost in some way that the balance between my working life and my artistic life is at times a bit off kilter. There are some days in which I feel satisfied with my work and satisfied with the, shall we say, the separation of church and state. But then there's at times in which I feel, why am I going through all this in both my artistic practice and in my day-to-day job? Because almost in some way, for me, I'm a magpie. I'm looking for the next shiny thing, and probably reflects on my mentality. reflects on my mentality that I'm unable to settle on something to create something. And
if I was earning money through my art, if I was treating my art as a job, where from 9 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock I would make work, I then have a coffee break, I then work till lunchtime, have a break, work till afternoon tea time, have a break, work till going home time, have a break, would my work be better? Would I make more of it? Would it be more valuable to me if I was making it for a show or for money? Or would that be a compromise? Would I say, oh, well, I know people like this or they've bought this, so I'm going to make more of it, even if I denied the fact that I was inspired or influenced by people's choices? Would I just be influenced by it? It's a dilemma, a serious dilemma. Is it better to do what I'm doing now, which is making my work and not worrying about the money?
I can now actually see myself having an art business and having a life as a full-time artist. And if I have to go and do a little job to bring in some money to pay some bills, I'm actually happy about that. But I'm not letting that part overtake the creative part. The creative part needs to be a big chunk, and then I'm letting, it's like I've tipped the balance. Instead of being like workaholic where I'm constantly working all the time and squeezing in the creative stuff, I'm now attempting to tip the balance where my life is the creative stuff and I'm squeezing in some work stuff, and that feels better. That actually feels more in harmony for me, if that makes sense.
But you've got to be really careful, because you can't let people say stuff like that. And anyway, so that's what happened yesterday, and I didn't deal with it properly. And you just get left the whole night thinking, I didn't deal with this properly. And the kids already, I'm going to go back in on Thursday, and there'll be kids looking at me like I'm still thinking I don't deal with stuff properly, or not supportive of that, you know. Anyway, so that's what happened.